Warning, this series reflects on changes that might not be final. They are tentative and are subject to change throughout the pre-season.
Hey everyone, Shakarez or Killbot here, and welcome to Rift Overview, where I'll be taking a look at the upcoming changes to the Preseason 5. Today we'll go over map changes. So first off, and as you probably know, there was a visual update to Summoner's Rift. If you haven't seen it yet, I'd advise you to take a look at this video on Surrender at 20's channel. Rotating onto the turrets, turret health values were reduced and their resistances were changed, but their durability is more or less the same. The changes are mostly to help players understand the damage they do to the turrets. Outer turrets were mostly left unchanged and are the basic turrets, so to speak. Inner turrets now have a regenerating health shield of 200 health points. When near these turrets, champions will also gain a shield that gains 50 HP per second up to 300. The objective here is mainly to grant the defending side a response to poke and siege compositions. However, this will not completely invalidate these compositions, since the shield will not regenerate if you have taken damage in the last 7 seconds. Inhibitor turrets now have a beam type attack that deals constant damage that quickly ramps up. These ramping stats reset every time the turret changes target. The objective here is to give the defending team a response to split pushers and good duelists. Your team composition might not always have a suitable response to a split pusher, and the turret's attack will help you fight him in case he decides to dive you. At the same time, this doesn't completely push split pushers out of favor, but it will force the team with the split pusher to play the composition and strategy better. Riot also mentioned that they can and will tune the power of these turrets if necessary. Nexus turrets are the turrets that are currently unchanged. However, Riot has experimented with putting the beam passive on them in various PvE iterations, so be on the lookout for that. As for the inhibitors, there have been PvE iterations where the spawn time was 6 minutes, but it seems to have gone down back to 5 again. What is interesting is the animation around the inhibitor, which is very similar to the Twisted Tree Line altars. This gives both teams an idea on how much time is left for it to come back up, and how to plan accordingly to attack or defend it. Other than towers, the other two big objectives in Summoner's Rift are Baron and Dragon. They were both heavily changed as well. Dragon no longer gives gold and instead gives a buff that stacks. These stacks have been changed a lot in the last PvE iterations, probably Riot testing different options, but right now the stacks are plus 8% attack damage and ability power, plus 15% damage to minions and monsters, plus 5 movement speed, extra 15% damage to towers and buildings, and the last one, which is Aspect of the Dragon, doubles all of the bonuses I mentioned before, and your attacks burn enemies for 150 true damage over 3 seconds, but this last buff only lasts for 3 minutes. The other 4 are permanent. Despite the buffs I mentioned, Riot stated that they were currently looking at slightly different buffs, but this article they released on gameplay was released before the latest PvE changes, so these might actually be more outdated than the ones I just gave you. These dragon changes are done to give it more late game relevance. Most of the stats are percentages, so they'll scale really well into the late game. Moving on to Baron Nashor, he has a number of new abilities like knockups and a mix of abilities versus ranged and melee champions. His buff was also changed. The health and mana regeneration were removed, and instead his buff gives 2 different power-ups. 1, he gives empowered recall. Your recall is halved down to 4 seconds, and after recalling you'll have massive health regeneration and bonus movement speed for a few seconds. The second one is empowered minions. Melee minions become tankier, casters do more damage, and cannon minions have more range and do AoE damage and more damage to towers. Super minions gain movement speed and bonus attack speed when near enemies. It's important to note that the minions will only be empowered when they are close to you. These Baron changes are ultimately to help the winning side siege and beating the defending team that is constantly turtling inside the base. To be fair, most often than not, it's the winning side getting the Barons. Health and mana regen didn't really make sense for this situation, but the empowered minions will definitely help much more, especially with the new inhibitor turrets that completely destroy anything and anyone. Outside of the jungle, there is also a new creature called the Scuttle Crab. He doesn't attack, and he just roams up and down the river in front of Dragon and Baron. When killed, he'll grant experience and health like any other jungle monster, but he'll also swim to the space in front of the Dragon and Baron pits and provide a vision buff for 90 seconds over these two buffs. Besides this, the team that killed the crab will also get increased movement speed when walking over the speed shrine. The Scuttle Crab is, in my opinion, the most interesting and game-changing aspect of these map changes. It spawns at 2 minutes 30 seconds and his buff lasts for 90 seconds. This means that controlling the crab means you'll have free vision over 2 parts of the river for more than half of the time. This allows winning bot lanes to feel safer, for example, and push for a bigger advantage, and basically almost guarantees that the opposing team can take Baron or Dragon when the buff is active. It's going to be interesting to see how junglers are going to approach this new objective and whether laners are going to roam to the river to help take it down. But I digress. That is going to be all for this video, the one I'm touching less on the analysis side of things, but I think it's important to give an overview before we move on to the jungle changes. I'll see you guys in the Rift. Chakra is signing out.